This strange set of text is actually English, Old English to be exact. It's the first lines of Beowulf, one of the first written texts in Old English. Because of this status, Beowulf becomes one of the most important texts ever written. It's difficult to read because there's a lot of words and things that you don't really understand. For example, the thing, which is popping up, that little C backwards with a slash going down, that's a thing. To help us understand, there's a wonderful book called the Bosworth Toller Anglo-Saxon English Dictionary. There's actually a website that helps you out, but it's down for the moment. Some fans have decided to take another step and write books in the old language that they are studying. The most famous of which was actually J.R.R. Tolkien, who wrote The Lord of the Rings based on his understanding from ancient languages. Frodo, for example, means intelligent or smart one. This is more to show you the amount of culture that can come from English, a single thing, over the years. You might be wondering what this has to do with video games, and the answer is, in the 50 years that video games has existed, it has created its own Old English, and groups of people who have gotten together to make their own additions to those languages and to those ideas. I'm not talking about just history books, or people who enjoy playing old school games. I'm talking specifically about people who take engines and styles from old video games and try to make something new from it. This is one of those groups that you've probably never heard of, just like Old English groups, that just happen to have a lot of resources on hand and want to do a lot with what they have. Each group has their own online manual and information to help you get started and to know what you're doing. There's also a market to buy old school books from back in the day to teach you how to make levels for old engines. I'm budgeting myself to get the Doom Gurus book eventually. There are some, though, who have made engines that you can use for the NES or the Genesis or some other system, and then released books on how to use those engines and make games. Then we have the insane people like Fabien Sanglade, who created a book entirely dedicated to the coding and level design of Wolfenstein 3D. His writing is beautiful. I've never read a book about texts that was just a page flipper. I enjoyed it. It was scintillating at points, just how beautifully well written he had made it. By the way, as a point, you should buy the Google Books edition instead of the Amazon edition, because he updates the Google edition a lot more than he does the Amazon edition. Meanwhile, other companies are releasing their old code and SDKs so that others can use them. For example, Doom, which is older than old, is also being released so that people can make their own games and understand how the engine was made. Hence the reason why Fabien Sanglade could actually write the book on Doom. These are the type of people that will go through old texts, old code, as if it was an ancient language, and love every moment of it. Speaking of which, a bunch of dumps of NES and Nintendo 64 games have been released, which means that people have been looking through the original code, the original ideas for games. It's caused a bit of a stir because nobody really knows what to do. If you're an emulation geek, you can't actually use it, because if you did, you would be legally binding to be sued, because you were using materials you could not use to make what you were using. However, those of us who look at it like an archaeological dig are absolutely amazed and are really looking forward to what it releases. Yes, there is a bit of legal questioning on it, but oh, that wonderful resources. As a historian and a fan, I'm really excited by what's being dumped and what's being shown. However, I also understand that this is private information and should be treated as such. So I'm often conflicted about whether or not I want to look at these materials. I haven't yet, but I have thought about it. I've also thought about kind of having a class where I teach people the history of video games, where we build a game for every major console that has come out up to this point. So then they can see the evolution of video games as it was built and make their own games and their own resources using that information. I think it would be really amazing. So what are your ideas? Would a class like that be good? What do you think of the dump? What do you think of books that you would think would really help out?